What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the DLC crowd for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. The game obviously releases, well, tonight. Some people are playing it now. I mean, it's basically out at this point. And with that, we're getting a lot of things. We got the review scores earlier today, and it's in the front of people's minds, right? Everybody's talking about it, whether it's for good or for bad. A lot of people are going to be playing it over the next couple of days. And one thing that has been pretty prominent with the discussion of this game really for a long time has been if it is, or just calling it, I guess, flat out, glorified DLC or reskin, or whatever you want to call it. I guess glorified DLC is, I think, the headline or the tagline of what we've seen so much. I've been bombarded on Twitter from the recommended section, of course, the lovely recommended section on Twitter, of all the people saying, well, are we going to say anything about these two games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, being too similar? Like, when are we going to stand up for this stuff? The first thing, and maybe even one of the only things I want to really mention, is if you do this, I just want you to be consistent. So, and maybe that's a little bit different than what you would get most people saying, but what ends up happening is these are mainly console warriors, at least from what I find. Now, not everybody, and I'm not saying that you're not allowed to criticize the game. In fact, go ahead, right? If you have something to say about Tears of the Kingdom, both good or bad or either or, you are free to say that. Here, I don't put people down or anything like that. But one thing that I've noticed in the recommended section, at least of Twitter, is just a lot of people that say it for one thing, but they won't say it for another. So if you're going to pick on it for Tears, you may want to pick on it for, say, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, right? God of War Ragnarok and God of War, things like that. And that's just not, the consistency there is not exactly what we get. And what I've seen so far, at least, has actually been mainly from console warriors maybe jealous or just upset of one thing or the other. And one of the main reasons I believe this to be console warriors is that kind of jealousy element, right? We know that these people really only have allegiance to the corporation for whatever God unknown reason. The corporation, the company, the hardware itself. Now, yes, the Switch is old and we need a new Switch, and you could argue that Tears would be a lot better on a more advanced platform. I completely agree with all those things, but I do think you just have people maybe upset or jealous that Tears, with its eyes closed, I think is going to sell probably more than any game that releases this year. I think it probably will outsell Hogwarts. It has a chance of outselling games like Starfield, even if you do it on Game Pass, Marvel Spider-Man 2. I do understand, you wait 3, 4, 5 years and you get a game that's very, very similar to the game before. But specifically when you have games, like we actually have examples of God of War, Star Wars, and Tears, I think are 3 good recent examples. These are games literally where you're picking up where the last game left off, right? They're literally in chronological order. And I think even from that explanation alone, you can get away with, well, the games are going to function relatively close. And that's without thinking about like game design or how hard it is to like just drop everything and restart and make something totally fresh, right? That's already extremely difficult. But just the idea that it's a 3, 4, 5, however many year turnaround, right? Now, I guess Zelda is 6 years, so it's 2017 to 2023, but you're picking up right where you left off. And yeah, so a lot of things are going to be very similar. I understand sometimes, I guess, some arguments of when people are upset about it. Again, there was a big deal, I think, with God of War Ragnarok. So you look at like Star Wars or you look at Zelda, if you pick up the next game and you start literally where you left off the last game, you have all the same powers, you are that powerful, say, again, but you do it at the start of the game, isn't that DLC already? Because you're starting out with everything you had in the last game, and then you were literally adding content to that. Whether it's you're going to go back to those same worlds and maybe you add an extra couple levels, new enemy types, new powers, but you're starting at the base powers that you already had, right? Like, aren't all of those things DLC? And a lot of those, I think you end up doing when you do sequels or trilogies, it's all kind of in a row. And I mean, you can look at the game development side of things as well, and just, you don't have to like it. You absolutely don't have to like it. But the idea is, and it is true, it takes forever to make these games. Like, it takes a very long time. So you could ask them to make a game and completely scrap everything that they did from one to the next, but that just takes more time. There was obviously that infamous argument with Kratos, I remember it so vividly, with pushing the boat, right? In Ragnarok, the trailer, he pushes a boat, and it's the exact same animation as God of War 2018. Well, the response there would be, well, why do you need to necessarily change that? And again, if the idea is you really want everything to be completely brand new, well, that already happened in that first game. So that did happen in Fallen Order. That was an original, nothing in there was created before, right? God of War. Now, of course, I mean, everything, there's a lot of reuse assets and stuff, right? But it's not being necessarily built from something else. So Breath of the Wild was that game. It was the thing that's, oh, here's all this new info, all this new stuff, all these new mechanics. Okay, now Tears is taking that. That's your starting point, and then we add from it. And that is not DLC. That is literally a sequel. It's the game, and then it's part 2. It's telling a new story, right? New things are happening, and you build on a lot of what you had already started building with the first game. If you want them to completely redo it, well, again, that's what they had just done for that game. So if you want them to do it every time, again, there's maybe not necessarily anything wrong with that, but you're then asking for a long time. I mean, these games just take years and years and years. So I guess you want a game every 10 years, and you need it to massively reinvent itself every time. Now, yes, games do need to get reinvented, right? I don't want God of War and God of War Ragnarok, or this situation, right? Tears and Breath of the Wild. You don't need 8 of these games. So eventually you would like them to radically change up the core. But that is what happens every so often, right? You kind of have a string of games that are similar, but they're building on one another. And then there's a pause. And that's when they kind of do reinvent the wheel behind the scenes. And then you get the new ones, and you get, new trilogy or whatever. So that's how I've seen it. Again, I think there's some valid points there, but there's very few. And I think a lot of, at least what's loud online. Again, I'm not saying everybody who's criticizing this game, you're immediately a console warrior. I'm not saying that, but a lot of people that you hear, screaming from the rooftops and stuff, they're not consistent. They only do it with one game or one company. They're not going to say their own accountable. And why is that? It's because they're a console warrior, or they're a fanboy. Not everybody, but some people. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.